best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmet's casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many. Take your check. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, regroup. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just dropped. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
What's up, guys? It's your boy. We're back to show you how to crush some MMA on Fanduel and Draftkings for Blaydes versus Volkov UFC on ESPN 11. I am the Geek, aka Kevin Allen. And what we're going to do today is do a quick breakdown of all the fights for the Blaydes on Volkov card. Really quick, because I really want to focus today on setting up the Dom. I actually have done I've pretty much gotten my DraftKings side done, and I was about to start prepping for Fanduel, and I figured let's all hang out together. I'll show you how I do's it, and it'll give you a little bit of an idea of how to attack Fanduel DraftKings using the optimizer or handcrafting, whatever it is that you guys want to do. This will help cover it. Renee Villa coming off the big win. What's up, man? Fucking rolling in the dough. Throwing dollar bills at hoes. I love it. So let's get started real quick because I've gone through this card again. You've obviously got my cheat sheet. You've got Big Marley's cheat sheet, all of our picks, all of our notes. I mean, if you don't understand, a lot of people don't realize there are notes for every single coach. Everybody who is one of our pros is giving you not just picks and why, but fight exposures and fight ratings and really detailed notes that everybody should always read. These are sharp guys, even sharper than I am. So I read this shit, and it gives me a good approach to how I'm going to attack a slate. Even after I do my notes, I'll read over some of these other notes and, get some sense of what we want to do here. So let me just go through the fights real quick before I get into setting up the Dom, which we will be doing. And I'm going to do it for Fanduel this time, as I got my DraftKings done already. It's not that much to show, but we're going to do it for Fanduel. But first, before we do that, I just want to go through each fight real quick. Roskopf versus Hubbard. We've got Roskopf being this guy who's new to the UFC, never fought in the UFC before, but he seems to be a crazy, maniacal wrestler, and I like that. It's very similar to what we saw in the last fight with Hubbard going up against Marco Madsen. If Roskopf has the gas tank, he should be able to score really well, just going for crazy slams and doing the shit that he does. Normally, a guy who's only 5-0 is somebody I'd be nervous about, but he just looks really good. And it's not like Hubbard is some sort of a world beater either. It's not like he's going up against some sort of UFC veteran. So I really like Max Roskopf here. Get a little shares of Hubbard just in case, but Roskopf looks like a guy who can score really well. Fight doesn't go to decision, -115, but he should be able to do his damage in the grappling area, which will actually be very beneficial on sites like, Fanduel and DraftKings. So Roskopf inside the distance, +120. That gives him not just all of those grappling points, but also about I'm going to say 44% chance to win inside the distance. That is huge. And if you want to go the way I like to set my exposures, that's pretty close to the kind of exposure. We want 45 to 50% exposure to this dude, maybe more, because this card doesn't have a lot of high scores on it. Okay. Again, a little Hubbard just in case anybody's live for a knockout. It's not like he's super long odds to get a win here. So you want to get a little bit just in case, but just a taste. Lauren Murphy, Roxy Modifieri. This one comes down to, can Roxy get takedowns and keep Lauren Murphy down? We go to the videotape here, not really videotape, but I like to look at the stats on these fighters to get a sense of what can happen. The problem with Roxy is her takedowns are not very, very athletic. They're not very good. And if you're decent at all at keeping it standing, she will not be able to get you to the ground. So, man, you know, she's got a 21% takedown, and she's going to keep going for them. But her stand-up is terrible, and she's not very successful with takedowns. She's coming off a win where her opponent busted her knee, and that's why she was able to win it. She would have gotten smoked in that fight. Lauren Murphy's takedown defense is not very good at 66%, but it's not the worst in the UFC female division. It's okay. I'm giving Lauren Murphy the edge here, and I hate both of these fighters. I actually like Roxy from a personality standpoint, but as a fighter, she's very mediocre. Lauren Murphy didn't look good on The Ultimate Fighter. Seemed kind of lazy, but she's looked decent after that. I just want to point out one thing with these two gals. The main thing for Roxy is when she's won, and it's always a shock, and you never have any exposure to her because it's always, although I did have a little bit against Shevchenko, but like when she's won, she scores well because the only way she wins is by dominating with her grappling. And so when she's won, she scored very well. Here, one takedown, but Bar Ponchak, you know, but her wins have come against really bad fighters. Again, she lost to Sarge Eubanks to get an idea. She gets a win against Barb Honchak. She was able to get a takedown, and Barb Honchak was like 42 years old. And she gets the win against Shevchenko. We've already seen Shevchenko has no ground game whatsoever and no takedown defense. She's a kickboxer, and it showed in this fight. She had no possible way of getting up. And then, of course, Macy Barber blows out the ACL. And we've seen fighters fight through a blown ACL before, but you can't expect every human being to be able to power through that. And so she was just able to dominate her. I think Murphy's going to get this win here. Murphy, not the best scorer when she wins, but whatever. I think she's going to get the win, and she's underdog value. Here we go. Camacho versus Janes. This is an easy one. Load up on Camacho. This guy Janes has not looked. I saw his tape, and it just wasn't that great. He looks to turtle up when he's getting hit. I don't really like him. And Camacho is a guy who's coming up with a bunch of losses, but a legit UFC fighter. Went 3 rounds, had a fight, a close decision against Drew Dober. To give you an idea, we've seen how good Drew Dober is. So I'm just going to go for it. Camacho all in. Fight doesn't go decision minus 270. That's a good finish number. This is an all-in fight, and we're going to address Camacho when we get to the MVP position because there's a competition between him and Curtis Blaydes for the top spot there. We'll talk about that, but Blaydes is going to be my top spot guy for sure. But I like Camacho as the sneaky alternative. Gillian Robertson, Courtney Casey. Courtney Casey's problem throughout her career is she can't stop takedowns. She got taken down by Romello Borello and actually dominated until she found a submission armbar. Somehow in the Calvillo fight, she wasn't taken down. She was able to stop that. I don't fucking know how. It was like the weirdest thing ever. And I don't have an explanation for why she was able to be good at stopping takedowns in the fight, other than I kind of thought Calvillo didn't give a fuck and wanted to strike with her a little bit. I don't know. It's really weird. And this is the stuff that you watch on tape and it's baffling. But overall, Casey hasn't been the best at stopping takedowns. She gets taken down a shitload in all of her fights. 6 times by Gadelia. Aguilar took her down. Herrick took her down. Watterson took her down a bunch of times. Even Anita Hill took her down in that fight. A lot of striking in that one. They want to stand and bang. Now she's going up against Gillian Robertson. Gillian Robertson only wants takedowns. She does not do anything else. 2 takedowns. What's nice about Gillian Robertson is she gets advanced positions. You only see advanced positions from really, really good wrestlers, okay? Mediocre wrestlers, and I'll give you an example. On this card, like Rocky Pennington. When they get takedowns, they don't do a whole lot of advancing. And you could see here, 3 takedowns, only 2. 1-1. She's not getting the 6, the 7s, the 8s. This is the difference between somebody who gets a takedown and does something with it, scoring-wise, and somebody who just lays there and fucking sucks up time off of the board without putting up DraftKings scoring. Pacing and points per minute are the key. You pick the winner, but we also need to pick who will score if a fight goes long, who's scoring the most points per minute, and also who will score or has the potential for the early finish, which puts up the high score. That's the whole equation. That's the math of MMA. So in the case of Robertson, when she's executing her game plan, she's putting up points. And here's the evidence: 102, 107, 119, 107. Now you might, it's a fluke. It's not a fluke. This shit happens over and over again. When she's won, she scores incredibly well. When she loses, she gets her ass kicked. Okay. All right. How does she lose? When her opponent is tough. Gillian Robertson is not tough. She's beaten scrubs. Emily Whitmire, Meatball McCann, Veronica Macedo, Sarah Froda. These are women who are not in the UFC anymore. Veronica Macedo. Are you fucking kidding me? She's not even in the UFC. They're scrubs. Where is it? Give me it. Let me see. I'm going to show you. So her wins have come against Sarah Froda. She didn't win in the UFC. Fucking MS 13. She's back to work. She's back to work macheting people for a living. She don't fight anymore in the UFC. Veronica Macedo, has she ever won? No. What does she have? Loss? Against another fucking scrub. But loss. This girl just loses in the UFC. So what is Gillian Robertson? She's able to dominate scrubs. It's a close fight. Casey could definitely win. Casey has wins in the UFC against non-scrubs. Angela Hill, Jessel Agar, Randa Marcos. She also has losses to scrubs. So she's been around for a long time. Close fight against good level competition. So this is a tricky fight in terms of calling the winner. So what I'm more looking at is who will score well. I actually think both girls will score pretty well if they win. So how's Casey winning this fight? Somehow she's stopping takedowns, or she's getting an armbar from bottom position. But the more likely is she's able to stop the takedowns of Robertson. And we saw it with Gillian Robertson against Macy Barber, against Bueno Silva. When she can't get her takedowns, she pretty much quits because she's not somebody who has much of a striking game at all. Standing, she looks very awkward. She just is not impressive as a stand-up fighter. Courtney Casey will be way better on the feet. Not a little, way better. But Courtney Casey, again, has shown that she can be taken down and she could be controlled from top position. So I don't fucking know. Then she stopped the takedowns from Calvillo. I don't fucking know. But what I do know is when Robertson does her thing, she scores well. So I want exposure to that. And I'll get some Casey exposure for the underdog value. And also, she might get a knockout here. Gillian Robertson, again, looks terrible on the feet. Okay, next fight, we've got Andre Barrio and Oscar Perchetta. Even odds, guys. Even odds. Perchetta looked really good to start his UFC career out. Got a couple of big wins against some really scrubby opponents. Then he kind of went downhill from there. Maybe he was elevated a little too soon. But nonetheless, I mean, Jonathan Wilson, probably the worst UFC fighter ever, and Tim Williams right there behind him. This is not a guy who's had any wins in the UFC. He's just losing to everybody. Sucks. And you also had the win against Jonathan Wilson. This guy is beyond a joke in the UFC. I feel bad. He's a tough guy, whoop my ass. But, he's losing to Luis Henrique da Silva. It doesn't get worse than that. And quite honestly, his one win against Chris Dempsey. Chris Dempsey's the only guy worse than Jonathan Wilson in the UFC. So these are the lowest of the low. The lowest of the low. Here comes Barrio. He was a champion in TKO, the Canadian division, Canadian League. But he hasn't looked great in the UFC. Mike T, great question. How are we going to differentiate? I love the 2 lock button plays because what that allows us to do is just scroll through anybody who even has a chance of scoring well. So we have to forget about who we think is going to win or lose and start to think about, okay, if this person wins, how will they score well? And then we just scroll through that group. If we're making 150, we have enough ammunition to roll through a lot of these guys. Look at FanDuel even more so. That's why I'm going to max that shit. Because on FanDuel, you'll see as we create this, there's only 5 spots. If we have 2 locked down, and even more so, we remove the variable of MVP and just say, fuck it, YOLO. I'm putting Blaydes in there. I'm putting Camacho in there a little bit. Not adding too many variables. We can pretty much cover most bases. And if we start to figure out this dude, if they win, they ain't scoring for shit anyway. Like, there are definite fighters on this card that are not going to score well, even if they win, probably, especially in FanDuel. FanDuel, high likelihood decision like a Tisha Torres. We can eliminate a few more spots. And so now we're dealing with fewer and fewer variables where we can create 150 and potentially hit the nuts. When you say differentiate, there's no differentiation here. We're trying to hit the nuts. If the nuts is a tie, I don't give a fuck. I want to hit it. The nuts being the perfect lineup, because the perfect lineup will be achieved in this on these tournaments. So we could say, hey, I don't want to tie with people. But the reality is, all I want is to make sure I hit the perfect lineup. If it ties or not is irrelevant. But there's also the possibility here of leaving lots and lots of salary on the table. We'll talk about that, because there are approaches that leave a lot. And Marc-André Barrio is one of those people. Because if you look at this fight, it's a minus 170, doesn't go to decision. That means there's a pretty decent shot here that somebody's going to get a finish. If you look at the stats for these 2 guys, how are they getting a finish? Let's hang on. Let's take a look at the stats for these 2 guys. How is it scoring? So we've gotten low strike numbers for both guys. This is not good. Low takedowns on average per fight. Not good. Perchetta at least goes for submissions, right? So he's won a few fights via submission. Okay. Takedown defense for Perchetta is pretty bad. If Barrio just goes for takedowns, he could do a little damage. And maybe we just get a knockout here. So I'm not sure where the high finish prop really comes from on this fight. But, you know, they're both kind of sloppy. They're both goofy. Neither one of them is probably UFC level material. And something could happen. Something could happen here. I'm going to pick, it's even odds. I'm going to pick Barrio to get the win. I just think he's a little bit better on the feet. But I do have to say this. No one will own Perchetta because he is minus 110. Even odds, but you have to pay up for him. And that makes me want to own him just for tournament purposes. Like, we're not looking for value. What we're looking for is who will score the most in the win. So even though his salary is not a good value compared to his win odds, that's irrelevant to us at this point. All we care about is, can he score well in a win? Now, Perchetta, inside the distance is plus 170. That, for a guy who's going to be very low owned, again, let me just bring up the handy dandy sportsbetarmy.com odds calculator. He's plus 170 to win inside the distance. That is his. If he wins inside the distance, he's going to probably be in the nuts lineup. That's a 37%, right? So again, if we back out 10% of this line and we change it to plus 150, remove the vigorish from this. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not 150, 190. I always do that backwards the first time. So Vegas is basically telling us 34% chance this guy gets the finish. Now, that odds maker is probably better at this than we are, or at least very similar. So if there are 30%-ish odds, if we're saying if he gets an inside the distance finish, he's probably going to be in the nuts lineup, that is where we want to set our exposure. Now let's look at the other side of it. Now, on the favorite, you can always go a little below the win odds because there's a chance he gets a finish and isn't in the nuts lineup. So you might even go 25%. Maybe we'll do that, right? For the underdog, it's less common. If they're getting a finish, they're pretty much always in the nuts, or mostly always. So looking at Barrio, It's plus 240. Again, we raised it up 10% or so. Plus 270. Go to our handy dandy 270, and we get our implied probability 27%. We've just figured out the exposures we should probably be in the range of with these two fighters because we trust the probabilities that Vegas gives us. Okay. Keep going. Brianna Van Buren, Tisha Torres. Here's the deal with this fight. Van Buren goes for takedowns. She's a high strikes per minute gal. And one interesting note, we have the smaller ring, the 25-foot octagon. This is back in Vegas. So more action. So action fighters are forced to fight. You won't be able to run around and like sometimes when you have these smaller 115-pound women, especially the small ones that are quick, they can dart in and out and kind of run away. There'll be less opportunity to run in the smaller ring. Okay. Now take a look at the strikes per minute and the takedown numbers here. And if you just do the math, it's not bad. Brianna, 4.8, that's 5 strikes per minute, goes for takedowns, 3 on average. Torres, not much takedown defense. Van Buren, not much takedown defense either. Torres can go for takedowns maybe. She's not the best at it, obviously. That's not her specialty. But what's interesting here is somebody mentioned on, I feel like it was on the FTP, Fuck the Public, VIP DFSArmy pod, that Torres will, I think this was a sniper discussion where Torres, first time ever, she's not like small for the division and fighting someone much larger than her. I'd make the same argument for Brianna Van Buren. She's usually whooping the ass of girls who are bigger than her, and here she's now fighting someone who's about her size. Torres is a good fighter. She could pull off a win here, especially if she could stop the takedowns. But Van Buren seems she seems special. We can't say for sure, but she seems like a special fighter. She's looked great so far. Livnada Souza, good win. She has wins over quite a few UFC level fighters. Torres has wins over Michelle Watterson and some good fighters as well. This fight could really go the Torres way. I mean, she's definitely a live dog here, but I'm giving it to Brianna for the takedowns and the wrestling, and she seems to be improving, and she seems like she's somebody who's a legitimate prospect. So I'll take that. And I do think Van Buren is definitely worth consideration in just cash and also tournaments. Maybe she could score well enough. If she, I don't see a finish here, so let's just do the math. She gets 5 strikes per minute with some takedowns mixed in. We're talking 3 rounds. 25 strikes per round, that's 75. A bunch of takedowns in there, maybe a couple advances, that's 15. Let's call it another 20 to 25, 20 fantasy points in total. I forgot my math. Wait, 75 strikes, that gets us 37 points. Another 20 points in wrestling. It's 57. 30 points for decision, 87. So with Brianna, the problem is she probably tops out between 75 to 95 fantasy points in a decision. Might not be enough. Might be enough. It's right teetering on the edge. Don't want too much of it. Torres is even worse because Torres doesn't do anything except land strikes. So she would need, let's say Torres lands 100 strikes in this fight, and this is important. And I'll get to your question, Jacob, in a second here. But let's say Torres lands 100 strikes. That's 50 fantasy points plus 30. That's 80. That's sort of her ceiling. But, man, could she land 100 strikes when she's going to have to defend takedowns? I don't think so. Because if she's getting taken down, that's minutes of rounds being eaten up by her just trying to get back up. And then she has to be a little more hesitant on throwing those strikes because she got to be ready for a takedown. So you can't just unleash your volume the way you could on somebody like an Angela Hill who isn't going to go for a takedown most of the time or isn't going to do it actively. Brianna actively searches for takedowns. I don't think that Torres will be able to even get 100 strikes off here if she wins, because she's going to have to defend takedowns at the very worst. Now on FanDuel, they give you little points for takedown defense, so I don't really know how to count for that. But all in all, Torres, to me, even though she's cheap, probably a little bit fadeable. Good question, Jacob. Do you think Clay Guida is durable enough to not get knocked out or submitted? Bobby Green hasn't been knocking anybody out, but the fight goes to decision prop being minus 155 says the odds maker thinks that Clay Guida is durable enough. So that turns this into more of a sneaky fight. I don't really see Guida beating Bobby Green. I think Green might be the better wrestler. Guida does not throw for volume at all, and if he wins, it's a low-scoring stinker. This is a guy who couldn't put away BJ Penn. He couldn't put him away. So that tells me Clay Guida is on the massive downswing. If you're a real UFC fighter or a dude at a bar who's just drunk, you put away BJ Penn when you fight him. Guida was like losing rounds to BJ Penn. So I think Guida, we all love him, but no. I like Bobby Green here, and I think he's one of the sneakiest pay-ups on the entire card because everybody's talking about Roberts. Everybody's talking about Van Buren. No one wants Green. That makes Green very interesting. I'm definitely getting exposure to him. And I think he could submit Clay Guida. I think he can knock him out. I think he could do any of those things. But, it could also be a 3-round decision that doesn't score well. That's probably the most likely, but I like it for the low ownership. Next fight, Miller, Roosevelt Roberts. This one is very, very dangerous, guys. Very dangerous. Fight doesn't go decision minus 130. It's a little bit over par value here. Roberts, we just saw him come off a win. He gets a big scoring finish. There's a lot of recency bias in his favor. We saw Jim Miller sort of get out-muscled by Scott Holzman in his last fight, and Holzman eventually takes over the fight. Everybody expected Holzman to win that fight. It's no big deal. Here's my thing, though, with Roosevelt Roberts. Like, who the fuck is he beating? He hasn't beaten anybody. And this is a big step up for him in competition level. He's also not a volume striker. I mean, he came out at that last fight, and there was some bad blood with him. But he was beating fucking Brock Weaver. He barely beat Yakovlev. Takes a loss to Vince Pichel. And these two guys are not UFC caliber fighters. So I get it. Roosevelt Roberts, he looks good, lean, strong, but 3 strikes per minute. I don't see him. He's going to try to grapple with Jim Miller. I almost think that's where Jim Miller wants to fight. Miller is very good at grappling. He's very good at taking back. And I think that we might get an upset here. I always believe in Jim Miller. Call me crazy. He doesn't have the durability that he's had in the past. He seems to tire out. He looks old in there sometimes. Like, it's scary. You remember a few weeks ago, I had Matt Brown as my guy, right? And I knew the risks. He comes out. He's fighting a neophyte, sort of a young buck. He comes out and he throws the elbow, almost gets the finish. But, when the elbow didn't work, he faded away. And that could happen here too. Like, I think Miller comes out really strong and will look very good in the first round in particular. And then there's a lot of fear in my mind that he'll fade away if he can't execute his game plan or get a finish early. So that's just important to keep in mind. But what it makes me do is it makes me like Miller very much in tournaments because if he does win and the odds makers are giving him, if he does win, I think he's going to be in the nuts lineup. Let me put it this way. The odds makers are giving him a plus 200 shot at winning. Again, we're going to go to plus 220 to add our 10% vig. And that's a 31% implied win probability. Long pause and stare at camera. 31% win probability. So if Jim Miller wins, there's a really good chance he's doing it by submission with his grappling, maybe even a knockout. Again, this guy Roosevelt Roberts has not been tested against anybody serious in the UFC. And when he did get tested by Vince Pichel, who is a top 30 fighter, he loses. So I don't think that he's to the point here where we are locking him in for a win against sort of a perennial gatekeeper in Jim Miller. Miller has beaten bad fighters recently, guys who didn't belong. So I like the sneaky play a little bit with Miller here. I think a lot of people are going to be on Roberts just based on the recency bias. I don't know why this fight is catch weight. I'd love to know. But again, if you look at Jim Miller's recent fights, he's beating scrubs and beating them in the first round. Alex White, Jason Gonzalez. Who's he losing to? Not scrubs, the best guys. DuBronx, I mean, come on. Dan Hooker, Trinaldo, Pettis, Poirier. These are the best guys. So we don't have a lot of examples outside of, again, maybe like this loss here against Diego, which is really bad. But like we don't have a lot of examples of this guy losing to scrubs. He's losing to the best in the division and beating the best. So throughout his career, he's getting older. We don't know, but it's worth a shot. I'm going to have some Jim Miller. Roosevelt Roberts, Miller tends to get finished. Fight goes to decision. If it goes to decision, I don't think Roberts is going to score enough. I'm just telling you that. I'll get some Roberts exposure, but I think it might be under the field on him. I don't know about under. I'll match it to equal weight. He'll probably be 25% owned or something like that. I'm much more interested and excited about paying up for other guys. Where the fuck is... All right, I talked about Roscoff already. Okay. I'm trying to make this quick here. It's 30 minutes and we haven't even gotten to the Domination station, guys. We'll get to that. Lyman Good, Bilal Muhammad, it's wide salaries here. Bilal, 8,900. He's minus 125. Guy rarely gets a finish. I am really just generally not interested in Bilal here. I love Bilal Muhammad as a fighter. He's usually an underdog that comes through for us. But here he's favored, and I don't like him when he's favored. He's a guy that comes through and gets us 80 fantasy points as a dog. Anybody has a shot at a knockout, so I give him that. I'm probably going to fade him borderline completely or mostly on this card. He could win, but he's only minus 125. He's 8,900, and I just don't think he scores that much when he wins. He hasn't traditionally. We look at his DraftKings production, and it's very, very consistently mediocre. Again, most of these times, look, he was underdog, beat Tim Means, pick him. Again, against Rencounter, only gets us 83 points as a heavy favorite. Borderline comes through as a dog against Neal, but some of these fights he's just not worth paying up for. Hasn't put up the kind of numbers that you need when you pay up for a fighter. It's that simple. I mean, Good's probably live here for a win, definitely, if he can keep it standing, and maybe a knockout. But and he's a finisher over the course of his career. But, Bilal Muhammad is super tough. Again, the one thing I've got going for Lyman here is when he's won, he scored pretty well. Not bad. But he doesn't go for takedowns. He won't get us any grappling points. So he's got to get a knockout. At 7,300, he's worth exposure. He's super cheap. And I think if he wins, he'll probably get, maybe if there's a knockdown along the way or any sort of action, he could get us to 90 points. If there's not, best case scenario is he's defending takedowns a lot. There's a lot of time spent in the clinch. Maybe he gets taken down a few times, gets back up, but, does a little bit more in the striking realm. Bilal is not a big time volume striker. I think Good is a better striker and will be winning the striking exchanges versus Muhammad. But this fight actually, in my mind, projects to be not very good for scoring purposes. So it's a little bit fadeable. Another fadeable fight here, Pennington, Marion Renault. Pennington just has no history of doing anything in terms of fantasy scoring in her wins. Here, a win against Aldana, 62 points. Her pace is just so slow. 5-rounder against Nunes. She's still only able to put up 64 strikes over the course of 5 rounds. That's about her average, about 15 strikes per minute, 15 strikes per 5 minutes. Here you can see wins against all these different women, even with a bunch of takedowns mixed in, and still only putting up 60s. Yes, she had the big win against Andrade back in 2015, and she scored well. So she did that a couple of times. A little bit of luck here against Ashley Evans Smith, quick sub, scored okay. But it's just the history of mediocrity is hard to ignore. This opponent in Renault is way worse than most of her recent opponents, but I wouldn't say she's all that much worse than, for example, Phillips or Betch Kohea, and she didn't do that much against them. So You want to play a little rocky here. I expect her to get the win. The opponent is old. Maybe Renault gets knocked out. She's 43 years old. But overall, Rocky just has not been a good DraftKings scorer throughout the course of her career. I don't see it changing here. So we can pretty much ignore this fight. Renault, same deal. I mean, what the fuck is she going to do? Super slow in the ring. Not much strikes per minute. Not a lot of grappling going on here from either girl. Renault cannot stop takedowns, which is why I think Pennington will get a bunch of takedowns here. But she doesn't do anything when she gets the takedown. It's not like she's advancing, getting into mount and raining hellfire down like someone like Aspen Ladd. She just kind of hangs out in your guard. Could change here. Get a little exposure, I think, to Rocky. I definitely think Pennington's going to win. So pretty safe cash play if you're looking for one. Shane Burgos versus Josh Emmett. This is just a very simple fight. Burgos is all about volume. Emmett is all about power. Emmett does have wrestling in his... This may be an important point. Burgos does not have wrestling in his repertoire at all. He doesn't go for a takedown. So when he's getting hurt on the feet, it's not like he can dive for a takedown and get a rest or do something like that, like save himself. He's got no way out. If he's getting pieced up, there's nowhere to run. That's what happened against Calvin Kattar. He just had nowhere to run when he was getting pieced up. Emmett basically is a power striker at this point. He goes out there and he wings bombs. Very similar fighting style to my boy Cody Garbrandt. Low volume, winging bombs. They're from the same camp, so they have the same philosophy. It leads to knockouts. It leads to knockdowns. They're just out there throwing bombs. They don't throw at a high volume, though. So he's not going to land enough strikes to score well if he's not getting knockdowns. But he always gets knockdowns. And in his wins, they have scored well because sometimes he gets the quick finish. He's 7,500. Shane Burgos fights with his hands down. There's a lot to like there. Shane Burgos beating fucking scrubs, right? Scrubs. There's a song called Scrubs out there. I'm not allowed to play it on a live stream. But I want you to think of it in your head as we're talking about this. I don't want no scrub. Who's he beating? Cub Swanson, old as fuck. And that was a war. Beautiful. But it was all volume, right? He threw tons of strikes in that fight. And Cub was a willing participant. Makwan Amirkhani was kind of dominating Burgos in the first round, kind of gasses out, and then Burgos just goes to town on this dude. Okay, eventually gets the knockdown and a finish. But Burgos has not been a finisher. So he's 13-1. He's beaten scrubs. He fights with his hands down. Emmett is a very live dog here, and you could see in the odds, he's plus 125. This is a close fight. I want exposure to both guys. But I'm picking Emmett to get this win. I think at some point he might be able to find that knockout. But know that if he doesn't find the knockout and if he doesn't use his wrestling, the volume of Burgos is going to probably win the day on the cards. I don't really see Burgos actually getting a knockout, so I'm not really sure why. But I mean, like when you look at the inside the distance prop, it's really surprising that Burgos is a higher plus 165. I don't know what I'm missing. I have to trust in the odds makers a little bit here. I feel like I'm missing something. Like, what is the factor that I'm not seeing? And we've seen Emmett get knocked out as well. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe Burgos is such a crisp striker that they think he can actually get a finish here on Josh Emmett. So anything can happen. I think it was Jeremy Stevens that knocked Emmett out. Like, he could be touched in the right spot and go to sleep. So let's get a lot of exposure to this fight. Pretty high, doesn't go to decision prop, minus 180. I'm going to load up on both sides of it. I have a little more Emmett. He's cheaper. But I'm going to have a lot of both sides of this fight just because, even as much as I don't really think that it's going to finish inside the distance, or it's definitely, especially for Shane, you never know. Get a lot of exposure to both sides of it. That's all. And know that the winner could finish. It could be, just keep in mind the the Cody Garbrandt fight from a couple weeks ago against the Sunsow, where he's kind of like looking all right, but, winning the fight, and then boom, one shot, go to sleep. Emmett has that kind of power in his hands. He's got knockdowns every fucking fight. So he looks really good. And he's fighting much better guys, by the way. That's another thing I didn't point out here, but Josh Emmett, Burgos is fighting pretty crappy opponents or mediocre. Josh Emmett's been fighting really, really good opponents. Mirsad Bektik, Michael Johnson's all right, but Jeremy Stevens, he gets touched in the spot. He goes to sleep. Do with that what we will. Ricardo Lamas and Felipe Aran, like Lamas is pretty good. He knocks him out. Des Green, I mean, he got the win against Holzman, lost against Green. This is inexplicable, but, there's been a lot of improvement since the John Tuck fight. Yeah, a lot of improvement since that one. Holzman, great win. Des Green, really tough loss. So, I mean, it's a close fight. There's really just no easy way to go here. This guy has so much power. You can't ignore it. And Burgos is definitely better technically on the feet. So you can't ignore that either. Finally, we get to the main event. Nothing to talk about here. Go all in on Blaydes. He is a wrestling machine. He scores incredibly well when he wins most of the time. He has advances. He has takedowns. He has everything you want in a fighter. Second round win, 117. This is pretty much the template for what we should expect. And lots of takedowns. He's already said he's going to ragdoll Volkov. So unless he was lying on social media, there's a beautiful tweet of him saying, don't expect a striking battle. I'm going to ragdoll this guy. And Volkov is not someone who I think has any chance of stopping the takedowns of Curtis Blaydes. You look at the takedown, it's meaningless. You're like, oh, 76. It doesn't mean shit. There are no heavyweights that do what Curtis Blaydes does. It's that simple. All right. Questions? No questions. All right, let's get into it. I can't believe we spent that much time just breaking down the fights, but there we go. It gives us a fresher for what we're about to do, which is set up our FanDuel lineups. Okay, now join in with me here. We're going to make 150. FanDuel is a little more complicated than DraftKings in terms of the setup on the Dom station because the MVP spot, so it's not as straightforward. But we already talked about some very important things here, and I want to show you how to make it happen. The first thing I always actually like to do before anything else is I just run 150 using the projections au natural to see what happens. Now, a lot of you guys who are watching this just run 150 using the projections au natural, and then you download and upload to your FanDuel account, and then you wonder most of the time, like, why I had so much of this guy or why I didn't win. And honestly, if you do that and you're that level of lazy in DFS, you're never gonna win. You're never gonna make money. You'll win once in a while, but like for the most part, you're never gonna make money. You got to control it. You got to work it. You got to think about it. So we're gonna kind of run 150. I just want to see what happens. Au natural. And then we'll adjust from there because we've just broken down all of these fights. So with FanDuel, there are two aspects. We've got the MVP spot and, of course, the flex exposure, MVP exposure. So here we see if we just run the tool au natural, we pretty much get all Blaydes, which I don't mind. If you want to go that way at MVP, I'm cool with it. But here are three others that popped up. I'm going to actually add in a fourth guy. So, like, we already talked about some fighters that we think have a chance at being the highest scorer. It's really not Van Buren. It's definitely not Tisha Torres. I'm going to X her out. I definitely don't want Rocky Pennington or Renault. Yeah, I'll leave her in there. Lauren Murphy's a no. Roosevelt Roberts, probably a no. Jim Miller, don't love. Roscoff, okay. Hubbard is a no. I'm going to leave Green in there. Clay Guida is a no. I mean, these are just definite no's. Guys who just don't win with enough points to ever make it worthwhile. Casey, you're seeing who I'm unchecking. This is for the MVP tab. And how did I do? I scroll to the MVP box, right? And I'm just unchecking fighters that I literally just don't want here. I'm actually going to narrow this down even further, but for now, this is who I left. Now, if I just, again, leave this natural, it's pretty much going to be all Blaydes, and for good reason. look at this projection. It blows away all of them. Of course, we're using fantasy points in a win, and he's so likely to win that he's going to get this greatness, right? I want about 70% Blaydes, though, and I don't want to mix up the other ones. So who are some names that we can mix in here? I definitely think Camacho is live, so I'm going to mix him in for 15. Actually, I'll go 20%. So I've got 70% Blaydes. That's just happening naturally. And in order to get 20% Camacho here, I have to use minimum exposure, forced minimum. That's how it's done. There's no other way for controlling the MVP spot. Of course, I could jack up his projection, but I can't control it exactly. So I just use forced minimum exposure of 20%. Somebody asked before, optimal or tournament. We always play tournament mode, guys. Come on. Come on. Now, after this 20%, who else is a possibility? Well, I mean, I could see a little bit of Emmett. He can get a fast finish. I'll go like 3%. I'm going to keep it low on some of these other guys. Gillian, I'll give her, she could score well. I doubt that she outscores anyone, but like if she does win and she executes her grappling heavy game plan and then gets a submission or finds something, it's not out of the realm. Another heavy duty grappler we can take a shot on. Miller, maybe. Okay. I don't really like Roosevelt Roberts here for this. Roxy has scored well in some wins, but I'm going to take a shot and I'm just going to eliminate those. All right. So this should pretty much get us where we want to be. I'm going to run it again just so you guys see what happens when I just did that. What will happen is we should have 70-ish% Curtis Blaydes, 20% Camacho, then like a couple of points on some of these other fighters that we just gave a little bit of exposure to just for shits and gigs. But this is how I think I want to approach FanDuel today. I just want to fucking load up on a couple spots and hopefully mix through all of the other variables to the point where we can get the nuts. Okay. I haven't even looked at the salaries really because it's irrelevant. Okay. So 71%, 20, and then we got a bunch of these scrubs, right? Okay. Very good. Now, let's look at the exposures in the flex. Now, I'm like, Frank Camacho, I want 100%. He's almost 100%. He's at 95. When you look at the all tab after you've run it, because here's what you can see. You can see your MVP exposures. You can see your flex exposures. Then you see the combination. So I'm looking at this like, oh, I only have 75% Camacho. No, I've got 75% plus the 20% in MVP, which totals 95%. I might want 100% Frank Camacho. Let's look at some of these salaries. I'm wondering why I'm getting so much Lyman Good. So how cheap is he? There it is. So he's pretty cheap here at $14, getting a lot of that. Jim Miller, I'm going to want a little bit. So this is a salary-based thing. One guy I definitely want a lot of is Max Roskopf. If he wins, it's a grappling-heavy approach, and FanDuel definitely loves grapplers and gives you points for submission attempts. Who could go for submissions? Grapplers. We want these grapplers in there. Of course, Camacho, I pretty much want 100% exposure to him, so I'm going to jack that up a little bit. Unfortunately, Camacho was probably priced later on because he's not like a cheap. It's not like the same as it is on DraftKings where he's a free square. Volkov, I don't like. Blaydes, I'm already getting 100% of, so I don't need to mess with that. Who were we getting too much of? Way too much Lyman Good. Bilal Muhammad. Now, I don't know why Lyman Good is projected. I guess I do because he's much more live for a finish, but, no. Okay? How much do we want of Lyman Good? I'm going to say, what did we say? We looked at it, right? Lyman Good. He needs to win inside the distance. He's not getting takedown, so he needs to win inside the distance. Plus 235. We'll call it plus 250. 28%. That's where I'm topping it out, guys. I'm going to go with his win probability inside the distance, about 25%. I don't think he's going to score well if he doesn't get a knockout. I know he won't score well if he doesn't get a knockout. So where's Lyman Good? We're going to max him out, 28%. Okay? This is how you set your exposures. This is how no, I'm sorry. Never say that. This is how I set my exposures. You can do whatever the fuck you want. And if you have a fighter that you love, then do what you want. Load up on them. You'll see I'm doing that with Camacho. I'm doing that with Blaydes here. I'm just saying, fuck it. I'm going all in. I only want 3 variables. Now, you get more variables because, but in those 70% Blaydes captain lineups, I've got Camacho in them. So I'm only messing with the other 3 spots. And if I could scroll through enough, and if I'm right in both of those fighters, if Blaydes is the nuts MVP, and if Camacho is in the perfect lineup, if those 2 things are right, which is not 100%, it's a less than 100% probability that those 2 will be. But if they are, and now I'm just scrolling through, 4 variables, 1, 2, 3, 4, with all these other lineups, then I have a better chance. But if I'm eliminating certain situations that might not score that well, then I'm increasing my likelihood even further. So there's some discrepancies here in some of these exposures percentages that I don't like. I want a more broad-based mix. Shane, I love you, Shane, but I don't love you. Not 73%. He's also about let's call him a 28%er. I'm really going to try to scroll through a lot of these fighters at that type of exposure number. Just looking through. I want to see the salaries. How much is Bobby Grizzles? 19, very expensive. How much Roscoff am I getting here? Where is he? Okay, I'm getting a lot of Roscoff. That's fine. That's the guy I want a lot of. He's going for grappling points. Let's take a look at FanDuel real quick. I just want to show you the scoring system. Remind myself. That's important. And also make sure that this run that I'm doing, that there's actually contests left for me to join. One trick on FanDuel, very important. There is a limit to how many under $10 contests you can actually enter. So if you're planning on doing like the quarter and the nickel, I don't think you're allowed to even max out both. You'd have to do one or the other. Of course, if you're doing the one or the whichever contest you're doing, start with the most expensive one that you want to max out, and then fuck around with the smaller ones. But they do. I last time I tried this, I got limited. Yeah, 16% margin, never great. But I do like this contest, only 20% to first. And there's like a reasonable decline here, so it's not super top heavy, even though, of course, they do hammer you on the vigorish. Now, rules and scoring. What's the difference between Fanduel and DraftKings and the other sites? FanDuel definitely downplays decision wins. We want finishers on FanDuel, and you can see it's a 30-point jump from 3rd round win to decision, whereas on DraftKings, I believe that's a 10-point drop. It's 40. It's 30 points on the decision, and actually 3rd round, yeah, it's like 20 points, not 30. Other differences: significant strikes count for a little bit more. Submission attempts are 5 points. That's huge. It's one of the biggest. It's one of the biggest sort of difference makers that we see here on FanDuel scoring system. They give you 5 points for a submission attempt. So you have to look at fighters that might go for a submission, and there are certain fighters that could go for 3, 4, 5 submissions in a short time. I believe Roscoff is one of those. Who else might go for submissions? Roscoff is one of them. Jim Miller might go for a couple submissions, though I don't see a lot of them from him. So I wouldn't count him as a guy who would go for a lot, but maybe 1 or 2. Roxy, if she's winning, possibly could go for a submission or 2. So she could get some points for that. Murphy, though, I like because I think she's going to win. Bobby Green could go for a submission, but not a lot of them. I think Roscoff is our best hope at going for a bunch of submissions, which is actually why I think I'm going to get a little bit more exposure to him in the MVP. I'm going to actually raise that up to 5% just in case. here, and I think he's that guy. I don't really want Shane Burgos in the MVP, and I'm going to zero him out of it. He's getting a good projection because he lands 7 strikes per minute, and that will work out pretty well in a win for him. But actually, the ceiling isn't going to be spectacular, so I'm going to actually zero him out. I don't want him there. I do want him, but I'm going to limit him to 2%. Notice what I did here. Notice what I did. It's very important. He's showing up regardless, so I'm using a max limit. For ones who didn't show up at all, I'm using exposure min. Forced minimum exposure, guys. Got to understand what these are. I'm here to answer questions always. Let's give it another run. We've made some changes. Every time I make a couple of changes, I rerun 150 lineups just to see what's up. Every time you set a limit on one fighter, another one will start to pop up more than you expect. So if you try to, here's what most people do, and here's what you shouldn't do. For the group of you that are hanging out, and guys, ask questions. I'm watching the comment section. Like if you're on YouTube, you can write in and I can see it live. You can ask me a question, I will answer it. I might even pop it up on the screen. But let's look at the MVP now that I made that adjustment. So we're getting a little more Roskopf. And the reason, again, I'm liking him a little bit, is because I think he can go for takedowns. Like these other guys, like Emmett, why is he here? And I'm going to probably raise this up a little bit on some of these guys. I think I'm probably too low and maybe a little too high on Curtis. But the reason, why is Emmett here? He can get a fast knockout. Boom. Knockdown, finish, big bonus. Could be the highest scorer. Gillian Robertson, she could do a ton of grappling and go for a bunch of submissions. She's one of those types of fighters. Now, Fanduel doesn't score for advanced positions. What the fuck is a Belmont Stakes free? What is this shit? Fanduel doesn't score for advanced positions. Where were we? So grapplers don't quite score as much if they're not going for submissions on Fanduel compared to how they do on DraftKings. The advanced position scoring benefits someone like Curtis Blaydes a little bit, but Blaydes will rain down hellfire on you once he takes you down, and so it's fine. But somebody like Gillian Robertson, she'll advance, and she's not much of a striker. She's going to do advanced position, try to submit you, so she's got the submission scoring. But they don't do advanced position scoring. And what's an advanced position scoring, by the way? That means I take you down, I'm in your guard, I transition to half guard or side mount. That's an advance. Now I transition to full mount. That's an advanced position. Or I go from inside your guard and I advance to a better, each one of those, and on DraftKings they give you 3 points for those. Let's go back to this. I don't want to wait too long so that there's nothing left here to enter. I'm going to attack this, and I'm going to max that shit out, and I'm going to show you motherfuckers how I take this thing down. I hope, but if I don't take it down, I hope one of you guys do. So they don't give you advanced position points here, right? But you get 0.6 for significant strikes, so a little bit more for significant strikes, a little bit more for a knockdown, and a little bit more for a takedown. So, and then they give you points for takedown defense. Again, scoring system kind of weird on Fanduel, as always. They kind of like try to copy DraftKings, but also not much else you can do with it. You're also much slower to score. The gameplay on Fanduel, if you're listening, guys, you got to fucking do better. Like, you watch the whole card, and every single lineup on every person says 6 fighters remain. Like, no matter your fighters finish, it still says 6 fighters remain. You know, that's annoying. You don't know if you won shit until the end because you can't look and see what everybody else is doing. It's very annoying. Guys, fix your shit. Do better. Be better. Hashtag be better. Guys, we got to start a hashtag be better campaign. I just invented that. All right. Do you think here we go. Renee Villa, again, coming off a big money win. Renee, what'd you win in, man? I forgot already. CSGO, Call of Duty, NASCAR. Fucking rolling in dough right now on the wall of wins. Do I think the first fight can break the slate like it's been for the last couple of weeks? Let's take a look at what the first fight is, because I believe the answer is yes. But let me just make sure I recall. If it's the Roskov fight, yes. This definitely has the ability to put up a big score. I don't think it breaks the slate because we're going to be heavily on it. Roskov, again, is a grappling machine. That's what he does. He's out there going. He's not just going for regular slams. He's doing like WWF, like body slams. He's out here doing like the Undertaker thing where he holds you up and he just drops you behind his back. Like, motherfucker walks away. Like, he's that. He's doing like suplexes and all kinds of WWF wrestling moves in there, which is pretty interesting. So, yeah, I think if he gets a finish, but there's also a chance it breaks the card on the flip where either Hubbard kind of finds his way to a low-scoring decision win, or Roskov like doesn't put up that many points along the way. So there are a lot of outcomes for that first fight. Do not be all in on it, but definitely don't fade it either. I'm sorry, that's like what it is. The point system on Super Draft favors fighters with a high multiplier above all other things. Okay? Beyond that, it does not. Yes, strikers get 0.75. They get more. It definitely doesn't favor grapplers as much because there's no advanced position. There's only takedown points, right? So there's no advancing, no nothing. It definitely favors strikers who get a fast finish. The biggest thing on Super Draft is 110 points for a first round finish. Like, they jack up the points for the finish round more than other sites, but also the multiplier muddies everything up. So basically, when you have a 1.7x multiplier and somebody else has a 1.0, it doesn't even matter. If the 1.7 guy wins, they're probably in the nuts. So it's very, very fucking tricky on Super Draft because really, let me pull up Super Draft real quick. All we want to do is pick winners. Like, winners with a high multiple. We have projections for this. Hold on. Where's my project? You know what? I'm not even going to do it. I'm just going to show you. Super Draft, all you want to do is go all the way to the bottom and say, who can win? If Jim Miller wins, he is the nuts captain. I don't give a fuck what he scores. Okay? I go up the list. Who else can win? Well, Lyman Good. He can win a strike-heavy matchup. But again, you have to look at these multipliers. Who do I really think will win? Lyman Good and Barrio, definitely live for wins here. Lauren Murphy, all the same. Look, they're all 1.35. So they did this. Give me Josh Emmett. He could get a finish early. We want him. Camacho, hell yeah. Are you fucking kidding me, right? So this is giving you the baseline. Now, all of our pretty close to lock wins, Blaydes, and I think I'm going to use Blaydes anyway, even at the low multiplier, because with all of his takedowns and with all of his potential, I think he's going to get there regardless. Plus, I want the win. But beyond that, so what's your last spot? You know, and again, Miller. How about putting fucking Camacho in there? It's all good, same shit. But I think Miller, if he gets the win, will be in the nuts. He'll probably get a first round finish and a 2.25x. Probably get a submission early and a 2.25x that puts him in the nuts. He'll have no ownership, by the way, except for people who are watching this right now. You guys will try to do one with Miller, but he'll have no ownership on the site, right? No one's gonna. That's so risky. I don't want to do that. But if he wins, all we care about is if he wins. And then one last spot. Who do we like, guys? Give me a fucking name, right? So who do we want to take a shot with? Lauren Murphy at 1.35. I mean, she probably wins, but she ain't gonna do that much. She's not finishing her. Oscar Perchetta. How about Marc Andre? You know, fine. That's a lineup. Just happened. That's the magic. Yeah, it's definitely a learning curve. I've got Super Draft down really well for NASCAR and for some other sports. It's a little bit trickier for MMA. And yeah, Roskov is a possibility there too. Where's he? You know, what price is he? Did I miss him? 1.25. Yeah, he's, you know, what the fuck is it? Why is it still here? I thought I put that in. Anyway, yeah, I mean, any of these guys. And yeah, good call. I mean, Burgos, he's a heavy striking numbers guy. 7 strikes per minute. If he's landing all those strikes, let's just take a look real quick at the scoring system here, just to be clear. It's 0.75 points, and they don't have anything. It's a very simple knockdown 15. They jack up these 3 systems. Now, who lands a lot of strikes? Who gets a lot of takedowns? It's a lot of takedowns. Blaydes, Roscoff. Who lands a lot of significant strikes? Burgos. Who gets knockdowns? Emmett, and anyone can get a knockdown. So the way I'm looking at Super Draft, guys, is try to pick the winners with the biggest multiplier and hope that that's enough. Unless Marab is on the card, then you just play that motherfucker in the captain spot every fucking time. I don't know how to be more clear about that. What chick has the KO power? None of them. None of them on this card. They're not knockout girls. Brianna is tiny. Tisha Torres is tiny. Pennington doesn't knock out shit. She throws a bunch of strikes, doesn't do anything. None of them. Lauren Murphy knocked someone out once, but she was, yeah. Everybody knocks out Romello Barella. She's not tough. Yeah, Van Buren. Yeah, Van Buren is high volume strikes and takedowns. She'll be fine. She'll be fine. Does that mean 1.65x? You know, it's this multiplier is shit. So that's the problem. Like, you want to play Van Buren at 1.1? Well, if a 1.3 wins, let's just look at the difference. She puts up, let's say, she has a great fight, let's say 90 DraftKings points. I'm just going to look at this Livnata Souza because it says 141, but this is deceiving. I don't know what the fuck that's from, right? Oh, she got the finish in the 3rd round. That's probably, let's see, the 3rd round finish is $65. There we go. This is another big. So the difference between decision, 35 points. So she gets 65 points. I just want to look at her score. 65 points. Let's look at how she got 141. What is that? 65 for the win in the 3rd round. 3 takedowns at 7.5 points each. 15, 22.5 plus 65 plus 22.5, 75, 85, 92.5. Now, 72 significant strikes times 0.75. Guys, give me the fucking number, man. I don't have a calculator. 72 times 0.75 per strike. If it was 100, it would be 75 points. But we remove 30. That's 15, 22. I'm lost my fucking pace here. I don't even remember where the fuck we were at. 100 strikes would be 75 points. 70 strikes, 30% off 100. 75 times 15, 30, 45. 15, 22. 141. Yeah, maybe that was it. So maybe she did get 141. I need a calculator. And then you multiply that by 1.1. I don't know. I don't fucking know. But yeah, an early finish, she could score enough. But 1.1x, let's look at like some of these other fighters. What are they scoring? 71, 79, 124. 120 in his wins. You do the 1.3, that's 162. So you're looking at some like what they average score, and then you apply the multiplier in it, and it shoots up. So the multiplier effect is very serious. But like a scrub doesn't help you. She needs to win, and she needs to do stuff along the way, and then that multiplier effect is huge. Lyman Good hasn't done much. Roscoff hasn't fought. Hubbard, hasn't done shit. So I don't know. I don't fucking know. Look at the projections. Let's go back to FanDuel. Sorry. That was a long sidebar for Super Draft. 54. So there you go. 54 plus 65 plus 22, 65, 65, 85, 92 plus 50. Yeah, 141. So that number was correct. Thank you. Thank you, my man. Can't read your name. Straight Turpin. Straight Twunpin. Straight Turpin. 24/7. Straight Trippin. The fuck? How do I not read that? Straight Trippin 24/7. Let me tell you something, man. If you're really straight tripping, you're straight tripping 25/8. Think about it. 25/8. All right, let's go back to our exposure screen here because I got to fucking do this shit for me. I'm busy. I got to fucking make my lineups. So I'm just looking through here our exposures and in the flex. We're loading up on Camacho. We're loading up on Roscoff. That's probably a little too much Roscoff. I'm going to limit him to, I'm going to say about 48%. Again, Roscoff style with the submission attempts and all of that should score very well if he wins. But I'm not locking in a win. He's 5-0. Gail's laughing at me because I'm trying to do fucking math without a calculator live. Shit, it's hard. Like, I'm trying to remember a lot of numbers. All right. We're limiting him, right? This is way too much Lauren Murphy. Lauren Murphy, who the fuck are you? She doesn't finish anybody. So we're going to lock her down in the 30% level, right? We don't even know if she's going to win. Let's go 28. And remember, all we're doing here is we're scrolling through everybody that's not our lock plays. So I want to get a little bit of exposure to anybody who has a shot at putting up the big number and being in the nuts lineup. That's it. So we're going to keep running it, setting a max, keep running. I got to think more. A lot of money, 888 times 150. Do some math. 1,350 or something. So I want to, be calculated. I want to be smart about it. Gillian Robertson totally could lose her fight, but if she wins, she goes for submissions. She does all of those things that score well. So I want exposure. I want too much though. Jim Miller again, 28. I'll get enough of him. I'm even considering right now. I've got this set on one unique. Let's see what happens if we switch it to two. Like this is a little riskier because this will give us a wider spread of exposures. And in a sense, it's less risky. The only fear is that you jump over that one lineup that would have been the nuts lineup. So you literally limit your nuts chance here by 50%, but you increase it in terms of your exposures. So this is one I just like to do it and see what the straight tripping. Yeah. 25/8, not 24/7. That's like Corey, and look up Corey Anderson. His nickname originally was Beast in 25/8. And I was like, that's fucking badass, dude. He's not 24/7, 25/8. Like he beasts so fucking hard. There's an extra hour in the day, an extra day in the week. That's what I'm talking about. You're straight tripping so fucking hard. You added a day to the week and an hour to the day. Corey Anderson style. So here we go. With two uniques, we're spreading exposures around a little bit better, but I'm getting a lot of fucking garbage in here that I really don't want that much of. It's not bad though. This is way too much Tisha Torres. Like I don't want fucking that much Tisha Torres. Let's limit her. I don't want this much Courtney Casey. I mean, she could win, get a knockout, but it's not super likely. I'm gonna go like 18%. I mean, I'm just gonna mess with these a little bit. I need my coffee. It's noon. Wouldn't it be cool if Blaydes comes out to like some Rocky song for this? Like the Eye of the Tiger. What was the song that Rocky came out against Drago with? I don't want the song that Apollo Creed came out with, even though I love that song, and I've always thought that if I was to be a fighter and have a walkout, I'd want James Brown, like, I feel good, whatever. I live in America. That one, like, that's the greatest walkout song ever. But Apollo Creed got his ass kicked and fucking died after coming out to that song. So, like, I wouldn't want to use that one, but that's a badass walkout song. But what did Rocky come out to? That's what he's got to come out to, because basically Volkov is Ivan Drago. They look the same. I live in America. Barrio. Yeah, Marion Renault. Like, do you want... This is what happens when you put two... You want this exposure to Marion Renault? Man, hell no. Could she get a submission win? Yes. Armbar. I'm giving her a 3% shot. As a matter of fact, you know what? Let's trust in the odds makers for Marion Renault. She's got a decent chance to win, plus 155. Okay, that's fine. But Renault inside the distance by submission, plus 455. Let's add another 50. We go plus 500. Damn, that seems like, even that seems high. 16%. Son of a bitch. I want 16% Marion Renault for the win. I don't really want it, but I'll go 6%. Cognitive bias. Interfering here. I borderline don't want any Renault. I might just X her out, but I don't give a fuck what Vegas implies for her inside the distance probability. What's she doing? Submission? Getting a submission? I don't fucking think so. Renault? She's 43 years old. She's got arm bars. She's going to be in bottom. Not betting on her. Fuck that. Fuck that. So here we go. We're now starting to get a little bit of a look at what it looks like with two uniques. And, I think I want a little bit more Josh Emmett, so I'll raise that up a little bit. Shane Burgos, we're limiting him. Marc-André Barrio. Clay Guida, please. 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 Stop. Going back to one unique. Fuck that. Right? Come on. Guida. What the fuck is Guida going to do? How is he going to score well? 2.3 strikes per minute. You can't take down Bobby Green. He's a better wrestler than Guida probably. So what the fuck is Guida going to do? He's going to knock him out? What are the chances of that, Mr. Vegas? What are the chances of a KO finish? Plus 1,400. Okay, handy dandy calculator. 6%. Actually, no, because I got to add another 10% here. 6%. Anybody can knock somebody out. You want to have 30% Guida exposure? Are you fucking nuts? What's he going to do? Who else is popping ridiculous? Fuck you, KC2. Another one. You know what? It's too much of you. Hubbard? Okay. You know what? Here's an interesting thought. Because we have so much Roscoff, you definitely want to have some Hubbard hedge going on. Need a little more Roosevelt. I might zero out a lot of these guys that you guys are still seeing here before I'm ready to upload these. Sometimes I just say, fuck it. I'll full fade and YOLO. You never know. So Guys, keep questions coming because basically what I'm doing here is just setting up my exposures for FanDuel. You're getting a pretty fucking inside look at the exposures and how I do this. This is pretty special. Not everybody understands or knows the concept of using the odds and trying to understand with the implied probabilities how to apply that to our exposures. And then, of course, we have to bring in our biases. Some people don't like to use any bias, right? They just go, like, if you're sharp and you're just one of these numbers guys that's all about the numbers, if I could have done that math before without having to ask you guys, I'm fucking live streaming here. But if I could have done that, like, calculator brain, then I'm probably that numbers guy that doesn't even, I'm just straight trusting it. But I like to insert my bias into the shit a little bit. Yeah, Hubbard, to say only a decision win isn't no. Here's the deal. Here is the scenario where Hubbard wins, right? Number one, he just boom. We saw with what's his name last week with the Armin Adeshayev taking on the Hawaiian dude. Hawaiian dude just like comes out, throws one bomb, and this newcomer just goes to sleep. One shot, boom. That could happen. Maybe Hubbard comes out, boom, nails a guy. Guy comes out, he's nervous, UFC debut. Anytime you have a UFC debutante, there's nerves involved, there's adrenaline dumps going on, all kinds of shits can happen. So what if Hubbard just comes out and boom, knocks him out? Like the dude comes in, he's a crazy wrestling maniac, doing the fucking Hulk Hogan, hold you up over my head, picking up Andre the Giant, throw him down, right? Doing crazy shit, suplexes, pile drivers, that kind of stuff, right? That's right, Max Rothkopf. He comes out, he runs out to do it, and Austin Hubbard comes out and bloop, jumps up, flying knee, knockout. Nuts lineup. You didn't have him. You're fucked. Turn off the TV. Go hang out with your family. Now, there's very few worse situations than that. So, you get a little bit. But for the most part, what's the more likely way Gale travels that Hubbard wins? Yeah, by decision, but it happens when Roskopf comes out, he's going strong, he's a maniac, he's getting takedowns, he's doing his thing, just like the Mark O'Madsen fight against Hubbard. It could go the same way. Round 2, he's kind of doing it again, but he seems slowing down a little bit. Guy's never been the distance. Hubbard, pretty durable. Round 3, by the end of round 2, Hubbard's coming back. He's landing some big shots. Round 3, all of a sudden, Roskopf completely fucking gassed. Hubbard is out there landing on him. Boom, boom, knockdown. Boom, finish. Shit can happen that could lead to him being in the nuts. But most likely, yeah, I mean, that's how it goes down. It probably goes down with Roskopf coming out hot, doing his thing for a little bit, and then gassing out. And we saw something like that with Spike Carlisle against Billy Quarantillo a few weeks ago. Like, we like Spike, man. He was a maniac. He did it for about a round and a half, and then he started to he's breathing heavy, hands on the hips. All of a sudden, all of that energy, he realized, hey, you ain't no Kamaru Usman, bro. You ain't no Colby Covington. You're not a fighter with an endless gas tank. You know who does it really well and doesn't gas out? Like, those guys are the best guys. The guys who can keep up that pace for 3 rounds, Gregor Gillespie, Colby, Kamaru, those other names, but those are the best guys. Would it be the story of your fantasy life? Are you taking Hubbard? Like, shit like that happens all the fucking time. It wouldn't be anything for me. I'd be like, oh, there we go again. Another hyped prospect, 5-0, comes in and gets himself knocked out in 2 seconds. Like, that shit happens, man. And no, these pure wrestlers definitely gas out, because when you look at a guy, all right, let's look at this guy's history. Remember, part of the problem with Roskopf is there's no footage on him. Why? Because he finished everyone really quick that he's fought. So you look at his history, and where first round, I don't fucking know. First round, there's no history, guys. Second round, there's no footage to say what he will do after the first round. I have no fucking clue. You know who else has no clue? Everyone. No one knows. No one knows. Because look at the footage. I watch these fights, dude. I watch them. Oh, first round choke really quick. Rear naked choke really quick. Finish really quick. Oh, nice. This guy's good, right? Grappling bout. I don't watch this shit. I don't know what the fucking submission grappling, but fast finish. Fast finish. Couldn't find this. Good luck finding that on tape. 0-0. He's fighting 4-0. Okay. 3-1. Garbage. 13-8. 6-5. Garbage. Garbage. He's beating up on garbage. We don't know. Larry, what's up, my man? How are you using the odds and the prop too with the math that you were just talking about? How are you just using odds then the prop with the math you were just talking about? I'm going to try to understand your question, Larry. If you want to clarify it, feel free. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the implied probability on bestfightodds.com. Okay, and I'm explaining because for those of you guys who don't know, Larry is visually impaired and one of the most impressive people I've ever come across. The fact that my man uses the Domination station, fucking plays DFS, visually impaired, is unbelievable. So, Larry, I never told you this like verbally where you heard it, but dude, you blow me away. Now, I'm on bestfightodds.com where they show the odds for these fights. I hope that someday, soon, you'll be able to get these odds and all that broken down on sportsbetarmy.com, but it's not the easiest to get data feeds for MMA fights. It's another story. So I'm on Best Fight Odds, and I look at the props, and these numbers represent implied probabilities. There's probably a way to show this as, I don't know how to look at anything but money line. I'm sorry, guy. I don't know these other methods, right? So I look at the money lines, and then I go and look for the inside the distance prop, depending on the fighter. Sometimes we don't need an inside the distance finish. Fighters who are high volume, lots of takedowns, we don't even give a fuck. But if it's just going to be a striker, especially a low volume striker, like a Josh Emmett, for example, throws 3 strikes per minute, we know he's not getting you there unless he gets a knockdown or finishes. So I want to know what the implied probability of a finish is, and therefore we can see on this screen here, it'll say, Guida Guida was a great example. Guida inside the distance, plus 800. We look to the odds calculator, we type in plus 800, okay, and you get an 11% implied probability. Okay, Menefield repeat. Now you're getting nervous, man. Now you get nervous. Menefield, remember, he cracked that dude. But yeah, got himself knocked out real quick. But we liked Menefield's opponent a bit there. And Menefield, yeah, there's a lot of similarities here. Menefield dominating garbage opponents with his wrestling. The difference was Menefield was very clearly a horrible striker. Like, it was very obvious that he was like, actually, the other guy is Chase Hooper. That same deal where, now the difference with Hooper was he also couldn't get a takedown. Great grappling, submission grappler, but can't get a takedown. Menefield's a good wrestler, no striking. And he just got cracked and he was done. I had seen, there were signs on the Menefield fight that it was dangerous. Actually, no, Menefield, what happened there? Menefield's not the good example. It was last week's card. Who was the dude? Ivy. Ivy was the good example. It's more, the perfect example here could be Ivy. Now, Menefield, what happened was Menefield could crack, but we knew that he had never been tested beyond a round. And we also knew that Brown Bear was a very good wrestler and a control wrestler. The thing was with Devin Clark, Brown Bear, he had been knocked out and wobbled multiple times. So we're all like, yeah, he has the tools to win this fight, but chances are he's going to get cracked and just go to sleep. In this case, though, he got cracked, but he didn't go to sleep. So when you're relying on somebody to crack someone and put them to sleep, shit, sometimes you just don't touch the right spot. Like, there are certain little spots where you touch it and fall asleep. But if it's like half a centimeter off or whatever, you don't get the knockout. And if they have the tools for takedowns, then the opponent, like what Clark did was he used his tools. He went for takedowns. He had like constant takedown attempts. I think it was like 11 or 12 takedown attempts over the course of the fight. Eventually got one, and that was it. He's heavy on Max. So I'm fine with that. Like I said, I'm about 50%. But between now and the fights, I'm going to rewatch some of that Max tape. I'm going to rewatch some Hubbard tape and see if I change my opinion at all. That's one thing like I'll continue to do, even between now and fight time. Let's go back to our domination station here, see where we're at. Josh Emmett, that's a lot. It's a 38%. I like Emmett. If he gets the win, though, he's going to be in the nuts. I don't mind it. Barrio, we're going to limit that a little bit. Lauren Murphy, I'm actually going to limit her a little bit more. Let's go down to 24% with her. Lyman, I'm going to go down to 25. I just want a little bit better mix of some of these different fighters. Bobby Green, I like him. Austin Hubbard, that's maybe a lot. Courtney Casey, 15 is fine. Perchetta, I'll get a little more of. I don't love Rocky Pennington. I just don't know how she puts up a big score here. James, I'm just going to uncheck you. Tisha, very, very low exposure. So we're getting there, guys. This is pretty close. This is about as close to my exposures as I probably want anybody to see. So I'm going to keep going with this, but I think I've shown you the path, not just hopefully for this card, but for every card, not just in terms of how to attack, what to think about when you're going up and playing UFC DFS on these different sites, but also how to use the DFSArmy Domination Station Optimizer to set up your lineups, to build 150, to have hedges. Don't go too crazy with anything that you think is a lock because you need to hedge. We have to understand our own fallibility. And then you have to take some stands. So you take some stands, but then you hedge. Understand your fallibility. Now you say, well, I want to fucking play my leans. And that's where you just jump in and do a high dollar, boom, whatever the high dollar represents for you, the $30, the $150, the $5, whatever that represents for you, that's when you jump in and you do that. Are any of these fighters known as tree choppers? God, I don't know this fucking slang, man. I don't know what that means. I don't know what a tree topper is. Tree chopper. I'm assuming that means a big puncher. Maybe Lyman Good. He's a big fucking dude. Knockout. Josh Emmett knocks people down all the time. All right. Guys, I'm going to end it here. Good luck tonight. I'll be around DFSArmy Slack on occasion. Not too much. I'll be making my lineups and I got a busy day. So part of why I did this was so we can answer your questions, get all our shit out there, and be ready for this card tonight. But I'm around. Big Marley, Sniper, Eric, everybody's around. In Slack, we're all playing tonight. Good luck, everyone. I hope to see you. Yeah, man, you're fucking throwing out some. You guys are throwing out some slang. I don't even fucking know. But I hope to see you at the top of the leaderboards. Sport your DFSArmy avatars. Helmet after helmet. Helmet after helmet. First place, second place, third place, fifth, 8th, 10th, 15, 20. So many fucking helmets. Got blur vision. You got too many. Let's do it. Good luck, everyone.